My name's Chad Mathis. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I'm a horse trainer, clinician, endorsee for Cactus Ropes, Cactus brand, Heel-O-Matic. They sent me over here today to talk to you guys about ropes, is what they wanted to talk to me about the first. Ropes are a funny deal, and it kind of depends on where you live and what your humidity's like and what your temperatures are like most of the year round. As a general rule, all nylon ropes enjoy the hot weather, and a poly blend will enjoy the cool weather better. Now there's always that transition, you know, from spring to summer, or from winter to summer, and from summer to winter, right in there. That's kind of that people have a little trouble with. The main thing for me that doesn't get touched on a lot with ropes is load or kick in a rope. When I take a rope, and this rope is off the shelf here at the MGM, and I uncoil a rope, and I take the loop part and hang it like that. Whatever way that the spoke lays naturally away from this strand is called the load or the kick in a rope. This rope's got probably, I'm going to say if this is zero kick, if it's straight and that's zero kick, this rope has probably, let's say, 20% kick. Okay? They can tie these ropes however you want them. They can tie ropes with a lot of kick. They can tie ropes with minus kick or minus load underneath. It just depends on what you're looking for. And depending on, especially when you're healing, well, heading to, the way that this rope lays is going to directly affect how it swings. If I've got a rope that lays out like this when I hang it, that represents the direction that the bottom strand wants to go when I swing it. So if my rope is naturally laying out like this, when I swing that rope, it makes the bottom strand want to come around my head easier. Does that make sense to everybody? Whereas if it's kicked under, when I bring the rope around my head, the bottom wants to come under more than it wants to come around. Now, healers, that being said, when I deliver a heel loop, if my rope has a lot of kick or a lot of load, when I deliver that loop, that's where the bottom strand wants to go. If my rope has a lot of load in it, when that rope hits the steer, the load of that rope is going to determine whether the bottom wants to come under or whether the bottom wants to go out in front and turn and go that way. Okay? Ropes also come in different lays. You know, you can go all the way from an extra soft all the way up to a medium hard. And it's all personal preference. It's all personal preference. The main thing that I see, and I do clinics all over the country, the main thing that I see with ropes is I get these guys and I see them at the ropings all the time, and they've got a rope bag that's bigger than their saddle, right? And they've got every kind of rope you can possibly have, every color, 3 or 4 different lays. And by the time the roping starts to the time the roping's over, they have gone through every rope in their bag, and they're already back to the one they started with before. When you're talking from a consistency standpoint, and that's what we're all trying to do, we're all trying to catch more steers by 2 feet, we're all trying to turn more steers around the horns. When you're talking from a consistency standpoint, get a rope that you're comfortable with, get a rope that you like, and buy 10 of them. Make your rope the most consistent thing that you have in your bag, and learn how to use that particular rope. Now, if you find another rope that you like better and you want to switch, by all means switch. But switch. Switch all the way. Okay? Most of the time, if you're at a roping and you've got 16 different kinds of ropes in your bag and they're all medium softs or all mediums or whatever they are, switching a rope is not going to help your problem. Your problem has come from your fundamentals and what you're doing with your hand, or maybe how you're riding your horse. The problem is not the rope, and I'll tell you why. I used to think that I had to use the same rope all the time, whether I was practicing or whether I was competing or whatever it was. I take 8 outside horses a month to train, so my arm gets to throw 200 to 300 loops every day off of a horse. Well, I use a medium hard Cactus Hypnotic or a medium hard Cactus Mojo. That's a very big, very stiff rope. And if I were to use one every day, all day long, my arm would literally fall off halfway through the day because it's just too much effort to swing that rope. So when I first started training horses, I thought, man, how am I gonna, it's gonna be awful. I'm gonna have to use a softer rope, and then I'm gonna have to switch back before I go compete, and it's gonna be a mess. Most days when I train heeling horses, or heading horses for that matter, on the Heel-O-Matic, I use a soft head rope to head or to heel with. When I get ready to go compete that weekend, I can go from using my soft head rope to heel with, I can go pick up my medium hard and I can go rope, and I don't have any trouble making that transition, okay? The bottom line, what I'm trying to say here is, if you can handle a rope, you can handle a rope. But it doesn't do you any good to switch back and forth ropes all the time. If you want to learn to be consistent, pick a rope that you like and stick with it. Okay? Do we have any questions about ropes? I can stand up here and talk till midnight, but I want to know what you guys want to know about ropes. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. The question is about the load. He says, does everybody need to use the same kind of load, or can it be different for different people? It should be different for everybody. 2 guys might be the same, but it should vary depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? My ropes, when I order my ropes, I order mine either straight or kicked under in a medium hard. There's only a few guys on the planet that can swing that rope and keep it open. So the load and kick that I put on my rope won't work for you, perhaps. Maybe you can swing, I don't know. But it's got to be personal preference. And when you go buy your ropes, where do you buy your ropes at? NRS. Do you go pick them up, or do you order them? Order them. I mean, anytime that you go to pick up a rope of any kind, always undo it and make sure that you don't get the one that's loaded completely backwards or something, because the rope's just going to work against you its whole life. It's never going to be correct. Okay? Did that answer your question? Mm-hmm. They might be able to. They might be able to. Or if you've got somebody in your area that's a pretty upper number guy, go have him or her tell you what they think that you need, because you're nothing. Your rope can either work for you or against you, but most people don't know what makes it work for you or against you, and that's what you got to figure out. But that's a good question. Yes, sir. Doesn't matter. It's whatever your personal preference is, okay? A head loop, first of all, let me say, I don't believe that there's one particular correct way to rope. You can rope however you want, okay? But there are ways that make it easier and more consistent to catch different types of horns, okay? I believe that a rope goes on from right to left mostly, okay? And the more that I can keep the rope standing up like this instead of flat, the less accurate I have to be to get over this horn and under it. Does that make sense? The more it's like this, the less accurate I have to be to get it to go over the horns. The flatter it is, I have to get this part just over the horn so this part can just go under the horn. Okay, so here's where the kick comes into play, heading, or the load. If I've got a rope that wants to turn under, where the bottom strand wants to come under, then the bottom's going to want to come more first and then the top. If I've got one that wants to kick over, then even if I deliver my hand like this and try to keep the bottom down, the rope is always working against me trying to come up. And so even if I open it up with my pinky, the rope still wants to come in flat. Did that cover it? Okay. So depending on, and here we go back to it, the rope has to be an extension of your hand. But like I said, there's a happy medium somewhere. So from by that speech I just gave, now we all want our ropes kicked like this because we want them open. Only if you can swing it. Okay? The more load it has, the less you have to turn your hand over to get the rope to keep the rope open. Okay? Did I get it? Okay. Anybody else? That's personal preference also. I used to like a brand new rope. The question is, how do you break in your ropes? I used to like a brand new rope out of the twisty ties. That's what I'd do. Every time I went somewhere, I'd take one out of the twisty ties. However, I've figured out in recent years that if you break in a rope, make 2 or 3 runs with it, you take all of the stretch that's left out of that rope and you take it out, and the rope will last 3 times longer if you break it in and stretch it a couple times than it will if you don't. I don't rope the dummy with my new ropes because I don't want to put any kinks in them, but the way I do it is I'll take a rope out of the twisty ties, I'll go run 2 steers with the rope, stretch it, 2 steers right in a row, coil it back up, put it in my bag. Those are now competition ropes, and I don't use them again until they get either burned up or ragged up enough to use them in the practice pen. But just a couple runs just to take the stretch out. Something that helps me, like if I don't get a chance to break one in before I go somewhere, I'll find a fence post, put that thing on a fence post and walk to the back of it and have another guy get with me and just yank on it, But if you give a rope, if you stretch a rope and then give it time, let's say 12, 24 hours to come back, they'll last a lot longer than if you just stretch them once and then go to using them that day. I don't. It's different. Softer ropes are different than harder ropes for me. If my head ropes that I have, I'll just break in 2 or 3 at a time. Because I think if you break the soft ropes in, I think they change too much. If you break a soft rope in and then let it sit for 6 months, it's going to be pretty stiff. But a soft one, if you leave it coiled up and just break it in when you need it, as you need it. The medium hards, it doesn't seem to make any difference. The bigger, stiffer ropes, I've got some ropes I've got some Hypnotics from early last summer. And I needed some ropes to rope the dummy with, so I took them out of my rope tree there at the barn, and they didn't feel any different than they did in June. So I think the softer ropes, I think it makes a difference. The harder ropes, I think they're just hard. So, any more questions on ropes? Well, let's just open it up to questions about whatever you guys want. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. We can head, we can heel, we can talk about horse training, we can talk about if the sky's blue outside. Yes, ma'am. Typically, headers use softer ropes, anything from an extra soft up to a medium soft, depending on the person. Heeling, you know, medium soft is kind of questionable right there for me. I think a medium and up, a medium, hard medium, medium hard should be used to heel. Yes, sir. Okay. The question is, I've got a horse that rears up in the box when we score. What do we do? The first thing that I would do is buy a Heel-O-Matic. No. If you have a roping machine, okay, let's pretend that these are our boxes back here. All right. So I'm going to take my four-wheeler and my machine. I'm going to use the bones. Let's pretend that the bones is a Heel-O-Matic, okay, because it's more lower to the ground. Yes, sir.
We found it. I'm going to announce it real quick.
Go ahead.
Before he leaves the building.
Go ahead. I would think so.
Yeah. Dennis Chin, if you can hear me, we have your wallets at the customer service barn at the front of the building. Dennis Chin, we have your wallet before you leave the building. It's at the front right customer service area. Thank you, sir.
I'm Dennis.
Yes.
Okay, so we got our boxes back here. I've got my four-wheeler and my Heel-O-Matic sitting out in front of the box about 30 feet, okay? Now, most of the horses that I work with that want to come up in the box have had too much pressure put on them to get back in the corner and stand there. And the first thing is just like a loaded gun. If you set that sucker this way and get his hind end too far under him, up is where he's going to go. So what I'm going to do with this horse is I'm going to try to get him to leave the box at a walk. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the Heel-O-Matic out in the arena, dead still. And what I don't want to do is ride this horse in the box and turn him around and slam him in the corner, okay? The first time I do this, is this an older seasoned horse? Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to ride this horse. Do you turn him to the right or the left? Change it. Good. Right. So I'm going to ride my horse in the box. I'm going to go halfway back, okay? Halfway back in the box. And when I turn, I want him to take a step forward. And I don't mean blow out of there. I mean just a walk forward, okay? And this is how this transition is going to go. I'm going to go halfway back in the box. I'm going to turn around. Never stop moving. Make him walk. If you can't make him walk, try to make him trot. And what we're going to try to do is get this horse slowed down, okay? So the first time I go in, I turn around. If he'll walk, I walk out to the Heel-O-Matic. Rope. Stop him right here, okay? Dally. Move him off to the left a little bit. All this time trying to get him to relax, okay? Pop it off the horns. Turn back around. If he does that the first time, back in there, walk in here the next time, walk all the way to the back. Turn around, start walking out again. Okay? If he's real alley about this, it might take you 10 runs to get him to ease out of the box. Okay? So now we've got him where he'll walk to the back of the box, turn either direction, walk out, up to the Heel-O-Matic, stop, slack, dally. Okay, all this is relaxed. Okay, now we got that done. So now you call the missus or whoever out there and okay, say get on the four-wheeler. So they're over here on the four-wheeler. We're going to do the same thing now, only we're going to move at a walk. Okay, we're going to go to the back of the box. We're going to turn. We're going to walk, and we're going to walk up to the machine as it's moving. Rope, dally, stop. Okay, all this as slow as he'll let you do it. Okay. Now eventually, when we get to the point where that's no big deal, then we're going to go in the box. We're going to turn around. We're going to let him back into the corner, but we're not going to let him get back there and squat. Okay. We're going to hold him up about 3 or 4 inches off the corner and see if we can get him to stand there. And then we're going to walk, and then we're going to walk. And that's your transition right there for that horse. If you can get him to go in there and walk out. When a horse will walk out of the box, what's the first thing they do when they walk out with their head? And that's how you want him to leave. You don't want him to leave like this. You want him to leave like this. If you can get him to walk out instead of run out of there all the time, then I guarantee you, when you get him to the point where you're trotting and loping out of the box on this machine, you're going to feel him when you get to the corner. Number one, he's not going to be rocked back and slammed in the corner. He's just going to be standing in the corner. And even when you ask him to lope out of there, it's going to be down. Okay? But it's all a process that's going to take you maybe even a matter of 3 or 4 days before you can get to where you can have control of him right there. And it's something that you'll do. You'll go rope a bunch of fast cattle line, and then you'll have to go back and do it again. It's a maintenance thing. The way that I score a horse is if I turn around and back a horse in the box, and I back him all the way to the corner, if I throw the reins down on his neck, I want him to stand there like a shot dog, okay? When I get ready to rope and I'm sitting there in the corner, about 2 or 3 seconds before I nod, I'll pick up and just put a little bit of tension. I'm not going to pull on him. I'll pick up and put a little bit of tension on those reins. That way he knows now we're ready to go. If I don't nod within the first 3 or 4 seconds, I give it back to him. And my horses, when I give it back to them, they just relax, okay? And then when I pick them up, they're ready. Did I get it? Okay. Yes, sir. He wants to know that the different styles of head loops. There's only 2 or 3 variations really. When I was growing up, the only way that anybody really ever discussed was the baseball method, right? You're straight front to straight back, and you throw the loop like a baseball, right? The other that's kind of come along here in recent years is more circular and more cross, right? We're taking our rope and we're swinging it across the horns, across, and then the delivery is across also. Like I said before, it doesn't matter which way you want to do it as long as you're very accurate with your rope. But the baseball method or the airplane, have you heard that before, where the rope's supposed to come down like an airplane? I can't head that way because I have to be too accurate with my rope. My rope is going to come down flat, okay? And it has to go, the bottom strand has to clear that horn and get under the horn almost at the same time. As to where the side to side, you're coming this way, now I can turn my hand down, open this rope up, and I don't have to be near as accurate to get it under this one and over this one. I mean, these horns here are really pretty forgiving. I mean, if we put the big set on them, and you guys see the steers they're roping at the NFR this year, there's this much space from the base of their horns to their tips. And so you have to be really accurate to get that to go on there flat like that, right? So that's basically the two styles that I know of. And the one is just easier to be more consistent to me. Right. From side to side, it's the same difference. We'll do it close. I'll do it close once and I'll do it far away for once, and you tell me if you see any difference. I'm making a circle with my hand. I'm coming across the horns. Follow through, get my slack. I'm going to back up 3 steps. A little bigger loop. You're still putting the side to side in, but you're putting a little more forwards in it because the dummy's forward. But the next thing I was going to go into with your 2 styles is curl. Okay? Curl goes the opposite direction of your loop. If my loop is going that way when I deliver it, the curl's going to go where? That way. Okay? To me, the curl that goes back that way is the curl that comes around and hits where? Down here. If I get my rope going more that way, where's the curl going to go? that way. And so that's why it's kind of gone in recent years to a little more across. Instead of just straight forward to straight back, now it's gotten to be a little more across. Because when you bring that rope across those horns and you're swinging your delivery, the curl wants to come up and go over here instead of down. Where when it goes down, we hit the shoulder and it pops off, or we catch the front leg. Targets vary. I know, for me, if I can get my bottom strand to right here, and I follow through across the left horn in my delivery, I can catch them every time. If I lose sight of this right here, I miss a lot because I'm not guiding the rope into position. I don't think that the head rope or the heel loop is thrown. I think it's guided into position. Even from a reaching standpoint, I took the rope and I guided it to where I wanted it to go. Because, and people laugh at me when I do this example, but I can put all the speed and power on a rope that I want. But unless I have control of it, it doesn't do me any good. Okay? The main thing to either style is you having control of that rope and knowing where the parts and pieces are going to go. Look, it doesn't matter how you want to rope as long as you understand what you're trying to do. Most people are roping a certain way because that's the way Rich does it, or that's the way Clay does it, or that's the way Trevor does it, or Luke Brown. Does that fit you? That's what you have to ask yourself. Does that fit your body style? Does that fit your horse? Okay? So the main thing for me is no matter what style it is, understand what you're trying to do and understand what you're trying to get your rope to do. Then you can make decisions about how you want to deliver, how much kick you want to have in your rope, whether it's working for you or against you, whether you're reaching or not reaching. Those are the decisions that you can make if you understand what you're trying to do. Okay? Have I put you to sleep yet? Okay. Questions about anything? I mean, we've already kind of started into question and answer, and it's kind of hard to get away from it. I mean, anything that you want me to talk about? One out of 10 times. Yes, you're right. Yeah. And so you're reaching a little bit probably, okay? Just like I said a little bit ago, the more we reach, the more forwarders in our loop, okay? So just from your description, his question was, when I'm going a little faster and I reach a little bit, I usually rope the front leg, okay? So just what we said a minute ago, it's got to do with where your curl's headed. So here's what happens to you. When you're close, you're gonna come to these coils to get your slack. So you put plenty of a cross in your rope when you're close. So what you're gonna have to be aware of the next time you practice is when you're gonna reach a little bit, just hang on to that rope just a little bit longer and get it to going that way a little bit more before you release. Very well could be. Here's what happens. The narrower I am when I head, okay? The narrower I am, the more I have to come across my body to get across the left horn. The more I have to come this way to put the action that way so the curl will go that way. So if I'm too straight behind this steer and my horse's head is here, I can only go to my horse's neck. And so I can only get halfway across my delivery point. Watch this. I've got my eyesight right to the left horn right here. Okay? This is where it's at. And I'm gonna keep my eyesight right to the left of the horn, okay? And I'm gonna move this way. I want you to watch how much, and this is just physics, I mean you'll be able to see it. The farther I move to the left, within reason, the less far I have to come across to deliver, okay? Now, that being said, if you get too far to the left, where you're up here, I can't put any across on it either. All I can do is send it to them that way. Where'd that curl go? Down. So there's a sweet spot in here when you're going to run that coil away where you're not too narrow, you're not too wide. Because our rope, our tip is going in a circle, right? Our tip is going in a circle. At some point, if I draw a circle on the ground around me, my tip's going in a circle. At some point on this side over here, the tip is coming forward, right? The tip is still coming straight forward. Somewhere between 3 o'clock and 12 o'clock is where the tip starts to come across. And that's where I see people have the most trouble with. They get their rope going in a circle, but they want to release the rope over here where it's still headed forward and doesn't have any across on it. So there's the two main things. Your tip needs to be going across the horns every time, but you have to then physically hang on to it long enough to get it going that way before you release and get your curl to come up and around. And I'd say that's what's happening to you by your description. You're too straight behind, and so either you can't follow through like you need to, or you're not hanging on to it long enough and the rope's just going forward. Because when it goes forward, the curl just comes back, hit the shoulder every time. Yes, sir. Same thing on the heeling side. The same thing about the... Okay. The question is same thing on the heeling side. Here's what we have to remember, guys. Here's what we have to remember. And you don't already ever hear anybody talk about it. All you hear about is the tip, the tip, the tip, the tip, right? The tip is connected to this piece right here that I'm hanging on to, okay? So, without even roping the dummy, what happens when I stop the piece that I'm hanging on to? Okay? The only thing that makes the tip travel is just the speed that you have on it, okay? Here's the number one. I've been out at the South Point this week watching team roping all day long because that's where our Heel-O-Matic booth is. The number one thing that makes healers miss is not finishing your rope. All right? And this is what we're going to get into this. I'm going to deliver 2 loops, and it's going to be kind of hard on the carpet, so I'm going to have to over-exaggerate. One loop, I'm going to stop my hand right here on the outside of the leg. We're going to measure where the tip came to on this side. The second loop, I'm going to do the same delivery path, but I'm going to bring my hand to my coils, then we're going to measure the tip again. All right? Now, it's not going to work on the carpet. The carpet's not going to grab it like the dirt is, okay? Let's just look at the loops, okay? Let's look at that loop. Now, theoretically, in this situation that we're in right here, with the slick ground and stuff, that loop works really well, all right? That's stopping my hand on the outside. So I'm going to measure this tip, and we're going to let's put a mental mark right here, all right? About less than a foot away from the left leg. Now all I'm going to do this time is I'm going to hang on to the back of that rope long enough to get to my coils, and we're going to measure the tip again. What's that, about 2 foot of difference? All right? A foot, hanging onto the back of that rope, a foot here, makes 2 foot of difference down here. So the steers that you come around the corner that are kind of heavy and kind of trashy and not really hopping out of there very well, if you'll take the back of your rope and hang on to it and finish it, the longer you hang on to the back of your rope, the longer your tip comes through because they're connected together. Does that make sense? Okay. Now let's go into something else, because I think this is very, 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 very important. When the heel loop hits the leg, I believe that your rope, if my rope is in a straight line from the tip to the back, when the rope hits the leg, your rope needs to be as parallel with the steer's back as it can get. This is what a lot of heelers get into right here. They want to lead with the back of that rope. The more that your rope hits this way, the harder the bottom strand hits the ground out here. All right? So, if my hand is pulling this tip around my head, all right, there is no way, no physical way that I can take and push this tip in front of my hand. The only way, and I want everybody to listen to this because this is important, the only way your tip gets ahead of your hand or catches up is if your hand slows down or stops. That's the only way. So, if my hand is leading this tip around my body, what has to happen for the rope to get parallel with the steer's back before it hits the leg? What has to happen? I have to slow my hand down at some point so that the tip can catch up and the rope can be as parallel as it can be. How many times have you seen this? I'm coming around the corner, man, it looks good. Oh, he's getting away. Okay? The harder you throw your rope, the harder it hits the ground over here and the more you rely on the ground to be your friend. Personally, for me, the ground is not my friend. If I have a trotter or a steer that's really trashy and I have to throw a trap, hi Johnny Ryder, I will do that. But if we're talking about an arena and we take these squares into consideration here on the carpet, in an arena, this piece looks different than this piece, looks different than this piece, looks different than this piece. How do you know what your ground's going to be when you deliver your rope? Maybe there's a big fisher sticking up out there. How do you know? Okay? I am more of a fan of keeping control of my rope as long as I can keep it and bringing the bottom through with it and not relying on the ground. There's sometimes you have to rely on the ground. But how many times at home, you know, you go to 15 different arenas around your house and the ground's different every one you go to. So you have to throw your loop diff. If you're relying on the ground, now I'm at Bill's place. I got to throw a trap here. I got to throw it soft here. Well, I'm at Charlie's place today. I got to throw it hard. It's just something else that you have to worry about. All right. Let's talk about timing for a second. Anybody want to know about timing? Yes, sir. Is it my body leaning over? Chin's over my saddle horn. I'm swinging behind, and that's why I'm taking a step forward. I'm still going to finish it. Touching the hock. I'm still going to finish it. I have to finish my rope. You can't finish your rope like this. You have to get your body and your shoulder into it. I never lose contact with my saddle. I'm not standing up and leaning over and throwing, but I'm going to get my chin over that saddle horn and come around the corner. When I deliver, I'm going to sit down on that horse and I'm going to stay forward like this and I'm going to finish. I get my body into it. It makes a better finish. It makes a better finish than this. If I'm always back right here, then all I can do is just shoot it at it. So that's what I'm simulating here. I'm simulating coming around the corner and watch how my body goes down. I don't just bend straight over. My body goes down too. And I finish my rope. Because that's what That's what I see most healers do. Most of them start really good, they've got their swing going really good, and then they pull their chin away. You've got to keep your chin and your body down into your delivery. You've got to keep that chin over that saddle horn and keep contact with that horse. And when you come around there to bring that rope down, you've got to stay into it and finish. Does that answer your question? What are we getting into? Timing. Unless we have, is there another question? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. It's all the finish, and that's what I'm talking about. I just wanted to show you how hanging onto your rope made the tip come through farther. That's what I was wanting to show you. Here's what I see with ropers that stop over here. All right, and let's go into this. Do you throw a trap or a scoop most of the time? Mostly a trap. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with a trap versus a scoop. Nothing. It's all a personal preference. Here's what I think gets lost on the trap, though. On a trap, when the top strand hits the leg, we're going to release. We have to release there, because if we don't, top and bottom kiss each other, right? Okay, if I don't let go. Here's what I think more people need to do with a trap. When we're delivering that trap, when we release that bottom strand, we've turned it loose. We no longer have control of it, correct? Okay. Most people that throw a trap want to stop their hand here. And theoretically, it doesn't make any difference because we've released the rope. But most people that want to stop here, what happens? And I'll bet you've done this before. You came around the corner, you threw your trap, saw the tip come through, and you picked it up before he was in it, right? This to me, when I do deliver a trap, is the most number one important thing for me. I always, whether I deliver a scoop or a trap, come back to these coils. My slack is right here. This is where my slack is. When I deliver that trap, when I come through that and throw my hand flat, I go ahead and come to here. And it does two things. It doesn't let me pinky grab it too soon, and if the steer's trashy, it gives the bottom strand more time to do its work. So it's a time thing for me. It solves two problems. It gives the bottom strand enough time to settle on the ground if the steer's not perfect, because when I deliver a trap, and here's the thing that I see. This is a question I get a lot. Well, I saw the tip come through. Is the tip what ropes the steer? What physically has to happen now that I have this trap to have the steer roped? He has to go over the bottom strand. Bringing your hand onto your horse's neck on your trap gives the loop time to settle and for the steer to jump in it. And that's another thing that people have trouble watching for. Just like I said, oh, I saw my tip come through. I thought I had him. Okay? You didn't have him yet because he didn't go over the bottom strand. So that, and I tell people, I said, super. But you need to change what you're looking at in your delivery. Deliver your rope to whatever spot you're looking at. Then the next thing that your brain should go to, did he jump over the bottom strand before I pull my slack? Because I'm telling you guys, there's been hundreds of steers over there at the South Point this week and at the U.S. Finals when I was there. Didn't give the steer a chance to get in the loop. Tied on. This is what I don't understand about people that tie on. You got a guy that's tied on, and he comes in there and delivers his rope, and the steer's jostling around and he's not in it yet. And I got to get my slack. Why? You're tied on. If the steer's not very good and you come around the corner and deliver your loop in there and you don't catch him, you're tied on. Leave it sit. Most heeling misses come from people being in too big of a hurry. Okay? I do want to talk about this timing thing. Does anybody have another question before we get into the timing? Okay. When I was a kid, the only thing anybody could ever tell you about timing was you want your rope to be coming across the steer's back when the feet are at their highest point. I'm sure you've all heard that 100 times, all right? Okay. Good theory, except if I'm in perfect time with the steer and my loop is coming over his back at the highest point of his jump, perfect. But I have to slow my hand down and stop my hand to wait for my tip to catch up. So now I went from being in perfect time, I have to slow down and wait for my tip to catch up. Where am I? I now went from in time to out of time. You have to be ahead of the jumps if you want to slow your rope down and make a good delivery. Your rope should be coming across the steer's back when his feet are on their way up. Not when they're up, when they're on their way up. That allows you to have that momentum on your swing. I'm ahead, I'm ahead, I'm ahead, I'm ahead. Slow down. Now I'm in perfect time. Okay? And timing is something that I can stand here and tell you that your rope needs to be here at this certain time. Okay? But it's a feeling, it's something that an individual has to figure out for themselves. The reason that so many people have trouble picking up timing is because they're doing it the hard way. How many times have you come around the corner and you've got a decent swing going and everything gets funky and now oh my, and then now the race is on, all right? The best healers in the world never quit their swings when things go bad. The best healers in the world always let off their rope to pick up the timing. If I'm swinging a rope a certain speed, and we discussed this earlier, I'm always pulling my tip. No matter how fast I'm swinging my rope, the tip is always behind my hand. So if I come around the corner and I've got a certain speed on my rope and I slow down because I got head faked by a steer, and then I pick back up again, if my hand was already behind my tip at a certain speed, what happens when I speed up? It takes 3 swings after you speed up to get your tip back to the point that it was before you slowed down, and it's still behind. Your tip is always behind your hand in your swing. Always. Always. So the best way that I tell people to learn timing is get a little rope speed and let off to find the timing. Don't speed up. I know for me personally, if I find myself when I get head faked out, I know it. Oh, now I'm going to have to swing 4 times before I can deliver because it's behind. Okay? The faster you can speed your rope and the more you can pick up the timing off the slowdown, the better off you'll be. Okay? Yes, sir. The question is body position, heading, and heeling. What do you want to do first? Heading. Okay. The more contact I can keep with my horse, with my legs and my feet, the more control I have. All right? So, when I'm going to run up to a steer heading, I want to keep my chin, my midsection, my forehead, all that stuff over the saddle horn. I want to turn my shoulder back so that I can open my swing up. With my shoulder back, I can open this swing up. All right? You see the guys in the magazines, they're throwing 3 coils and they're all the way up over their horse. All right? You have to be able to ride really good to crawl back in the middle of your saddle. All right? Heading depends on whether you're reaching or running to them. If you're going to reach, you're pretty much stuck with one game plan anyway. you're going to reach, your horse is going to go that way. So you don't have to have near as much body control because you're going to dob it on them and go that way. All right? When you're going to run up to one, the more you sit in the middle of your horse and stay with your saddle and stay contacted with him, the more you'll be able to use your legs to do whatever you want to do. All right? To me, that's the body position deal. The more, even if I stand up in the saddle, even if I'm standing up and reaching, I'm still keeping contact with my groin all the time. So that horse feels like I'm in the middle of him and he can do his job. Okay? Heeling, I believe you should always keep contact with the saddle. The only time I ever get my chin in front of the saddle horn is if I come around there and the steer falls down and my horse is already stopped and I have to get forward in the saddle to get him. But all I do is come to the front of the saddle and lean as far forward as I can without standing up. When you stand up in a saddle, if I'm sitting in a saddle, I can use my feet, right? The minute that I stand up, how can I move my feet now? I can't. I got all my weight in my stirrups. Without having contact here in the middle of you, you can't use your feet. And so I don't like to stand up at all, ever, because I lose control and I lose contact with my horse. Okay? Did that get you? 10. We got 10 minutes left. And like I said, I can talk, but I would rather talk about issues that you guys are interested in than me just ramble. Yes, ma'am. You like their horns are real close to the... The question is how do I make a successful catch when the steer is up against the fence? Okay? I need something to show you something here. Let's see if I can do it this way. It all comes down, the closer they are to the fence, the smaller space you have. All right? I'm going to show you this trick, and I hope I don't make a fool of myself. Okay? Just like that. Not one time when I was going to deliver that loop did I think about where that steer was. Not one time. I tried to make sure that I took my rope to right here. So there is no difference. It's the same shot. If you think too much about that fence being there, here's what's going to happen. Oh boy, the fence is there. You're going to deliver it to the fence. If that steer is along the fence, don't panic. Keep your same spot and rope it, okay? That's why people have so much trouble with steers along the fence, because now all of a sudden the fence becomes more important than your target, okay? Good question. Good question. I just did. I threw the same loop that I would throw if it wasn't there. That was my point. I just roped it right to left right there. I had my rope going across the horns, and I took it across. No difference. It's in your head. It's the concentrating on the fence instead of concentrating on your target. Okay? Yes, sir. A head ducker. On a head ducker, I'm going to face this to you so you can see me. On a normal headed steer, I want to swing my rope under the right horn over the left horn. I think that the right dip is what catches the right horn, and following it through across the left horn is what catches the left horn. Okay? So however that steer has his head tipped, if you can swing that rope under the right horn over the left horn, no matter, if he's more this way, then you can take a little bit of that dip out and swing it more flat. But as long as that where that rope is coming in front of your face where you can see it, as long as that strand is under the right horn over the left horn, you can make your catch, okay? The only thing I will say is I think these steers are the hardest to rope. You agree? I think these steers are harder to rope than these. And one thing that will help you on a steer that's like this, instead of trying to stay over here and get your rope dipped over here where it needs to be, because you probably can't see that right horn, move over here a little bit behind him where you can see that right horn a little bit better, make your catch, and then you'll have to move back out before you. But that seems to be easier for people on a steer that dips their right horn. Just move just a little bit over to the right, not straight behind or anything, but just a little bit where you can see that right horn a little bit better. No more? Well, let's finish up. We probably got about 5 minutes left. Tough. Come see us. Yes. No. I want to take some. Chad Mathis, how are you? Good. We're talking about, I know you had some. Probably rather talk about calf roping, but let's talk about calf roping. How did, I'll just ask you a couple questions here since we're about out of time. How do you go to, and this is kind of behind the scenes thing, what did you do in the 30 days leading up to the NFR to practice, to get ready?
Bust my tail all day, every day. Wake up in the mornings, go to the gym, take a nap, go saddle my horses, rope for a few hours, lift some more weights in the arena, and get back to my bed about midnight. It was from 10 in the morning to midnight every day.
And I think that's the thing that gets lost. You know, everybody says, man, it must be just an awesome, relaxing life just to be able just to rope every day, and it's not that way.
It's fun. It's a blessing to be able to, control how far you want to go yourself. So just whatever you want to put into it, that's what you're going to get out of it.
That's right.
And that's why I try to put so much into it every day, as much as I can every day. I try to leave it all out there.
Yes, sir. That's a good way to be. What's your plans? Got 2 rounds left?
2 rounds left.
I want to ask you this question because I had somebody ask me this question. When you draw, obviously you know what you're going to draw tonight.
Yes, sir. An hour and a half before the performance starts is whenever we find out the draw.
So do you change your game plan?
No, the game plan doesn't change. The game plan never changes. It's to tie the calf as fast as I can possibly tie him every time I nod my head. The game plan never changes. How we're going to do that changes on the draw, because we might have one that's a little slower, or we might have one that runs with his head up and just wants me to rope him.
Right.
Which we're hoping for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a lot of it at the rodeo. We got a lot of guys here for the World Series, and they want to try to compare, roping in a hockey rink to roping at the World Series.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of times I think rodeoing is, you take your shot and try to convert, and that's what it kind of seems like to me in the calf roping anymore. I mean, the event is so fast. It's so fast, you kind of got to take your throw and make it work sometimes.
It is. The calves are so good this year. That's why you see such a good roping every night. You see 6s and short 7s in the first 2 or 3 money, and you can't back off. You got to take your shot. That's for sure. Your first shot.
And most of it we leave up to the guy upstairs anyway. So.
Yes, sir.
But how do how do the guys decide when to make a horse change? We're 4th, 5th, 6th round, and then we see somebody on a different horse. How do you make that decision?
I made the horse change, and then I got back on the other horse. It was mostly my human errors, my fault for making mistakes. It wasn't the horses. I probably shouldn't have changed, or I should have done a better job once I changed. And but you'll see if you don't feel like you got things rolling your way, and you feel like you want to try something else, then try it. If it's not working for you, then roll on and do something else. But you can always do better yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How much time you want to spend? About it? Anything you want to say to folks? You got about 5 minutes left.
Thank you all guys for all coming out here at NRS, and y'all stick around. We're about to have a Triumph Over Tragedy Foundation auction right here, where I'll be signing autographs for the next 2 or 3 hours.
We really appreciate you stopping by. God bless.
Yes, sir. He does.
Good luck
Thank you.
tonight in the next 2 rounds.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Chad Matheson, world champ Tuf Cooper right there. Give him a hand. Give him a hand, Chad.